Technology. It's become an integral part of our daily lives, from work to education, from entertainment to accessing essential services. Being able to use technology effectively is critical to our success in the modern world. Now, because young people have grown up with technology, it's easy to assume they're technology experts, so much so that they've been called digital natives. Now, a digital native is someone who's grown up surrounded by technology. And because of that, they're highly skilled and highly interested in using it. But research over the past decade, including work we've done here at UOW, is showing us this isn't necessarily the case. In fact, it shows us that the idea of the digital native is misleading at best, and as I'm going to argue tonight, potentially dangerous. Now, to understand where the idea of the digital native came from, we need to backtrack a little. So back when technology looked like the picture on your left, computers were expensive. There were some in workplaces and schools, and this may be causing some of you to get nostalgic about that. I can see a bit of that nodding going on. But they actually weren't something that most people had at home. So back then, we worried about the digital inequality between those who could afford access to computers and those who couldn't. Now, thankfully, time's moved on and technology's become a lot more affordable. We've now got access to a whole range of devices and technology's everywhere. So we've stopped worrying so much about access because it just doesn't seem like it's the problem now that it once was. Now, about the time when technology started to become really common, this is when this idea of the digital native emerged. And it came about because of casual observations and anecdotes about how young people seem to use technology so much more easily and intuitively than older people. And looking around, it sort of seemed to make sense. But it got researchers interested, particularly in what exactly young people do with technology. And that research has found some interesting things. So firstly, and I actually think most importantly, we've found that only a very small percentage of young people fit the digital native idea. It turns out that young people use technology in fairly basic ways for a fairly narrow range of activities. So most of them aren't as expert as we might have expected. Also, we've found that young people's patterns of technology use are very diverse. So they're not all doing the same things with the same technologies in the same ways. It's much more individual than that. So where do these differences come from? Well, personal preferences play a large part, and that's not surprising because we all tend to pursue things that we enjoy, whether that be gaming, social networking, looking up information online, whatever. But there's also a more general pattern in the ways young people use technology that's very strongly related to family background. So to put it simply, young people from families who are better off tend to use technology more effectively. They perform better on tests of what we call digital literacy. They use a wider range of technologies in more sophisticated ways. Now, this gives them a distinct advantage at school, and that's an advantage that flows on to later in life. Now, what's really interesting about this general pattern is that it's shown up in studies from around the world. And as I mentioned before, it's not that technology is expensive anymore. So this pattern isn't coming from having the money to buy technology, but having the know-how to use it well. So it turns out that digital inequality never went away, it just changed to a more subtle form. So why should family background make such a difference? Well, part of the answer is in the ways young people see technology used at home. For example, in middle-class families, one or more parent is often a professional. So they're often bringing work home, whether they like it or not. That might be a work laptop, or it might be doing work in a home office. Computers also might be used in a family-run home business, that children are also engaged in. And older siblings and parents might use technology to study or engage in further education. Now, all of these activities demonstrate to young people that technology is not only good for entertainment, but it's useful for education and work as well. And it's understanding that these are possibilities that gives some young people the edge in developing their digital literacy. So there's a very important message here about digital inequality, and it's in some ways a depressingly familiar one. But work we've done here at UOW also shows that there's more to the story. So since 2005, we've been talking to primary school, high school and university students about how they use technology and why. And we've found that there are some young people who don't fit that pattern that I was talking about before. Now, to illustrate our findings, I'm going to introduce you to 4 fictionalised primary school students who are based on the data that we've collected. And I'm going to start with Jack. So Jack comes from a middle-class family. His parents are both professionals and they're highly computer literate. There's lots of technology at home, but Jack's parents are worried about him using technology too much, so they highly restrict his access. Now, Jack tells us that at school when they use computers, he sometimes struggles a bit and he needs help from his teacher or his classmates. So in Jack's case, his digital literacy isn't as high as we might expect from his background. And so that gives us some clues that there are important learning experiences that children engage in outside school that build digital literacy. Now, the other 3 students all come from homes that we might regard as more disadvantaged than Jack's. But interestingly, all 3 of them perform better than their peers from similar backgrounds on tests of digital literacy. So Jessica comes from a single-parent family. She lives with a mum and she doesn't see her dad very much. Money's tight at home, but Jessica's mum has scraped together some money for a basic laptop. Now, Jessica's mum works as a receptionist in a GP clinic, and so she knows how important computer skills are for getting a job in the future. So she helps Jessica by passing on some of those skills, and she often helps her by formatting her school assignments with her, and she generally encourages her to learn more about technology. Braden's parents work in retail, and there's plenty of technology at home, but it's almost all used for entertainment purposes. But Braden's interested in technology as a hobby, and his parents want to encourage this, so they've bought him a laptop of his own. Now, Braden's parents can't help him with the techie stuff, but they do encourage him to make contact with family members outside the home, friends and online networks. He can get some of that support. Now, Chloe's parents are in and out of work, and there is some technology at home, and it's used for entertainment, but there isn't a computer that she can use herself. So when she talks to us, she tells us about how much she loves computer lessons at school, because they're helping to build her confidence and skills and knowledge with computers. So we can see that all of these 3 students are getting particular types of experiences that build their digital literacy that we might not otherwise expect. And put together, I think all of these 4 stories tell us that that general pattern of inequality isn't an inevitable one, and they should make us hopeful. So what can we do? Well, my big idea and my challenge to everyone here is that I think we need to reject the digital native idea as a dangerous one. And it's dangerous in the same way all stereotypes are dangerous. They cause us to overlook important differences between people, and they make us complacent about them. In this case, they're making us complacent about young people's digital literacy. The research clearly shows a general pattern of digital inequality, and it's one that we have to address. And our research shows that there are already families and schools that are doing things that make a difference, and we can learn from those. We also know that creative activities of the kind that are open-ended and require problem-solving and decision-making are very powerful in building technology skills and knowledge. So we need to work to build more of these creative activities and engage students, young people with them, both at home and at school. And this way we can give all young people the opportunities to build the digital literacy that they'll need to fully participate in society. Thank you.